This is Ming-Fei Chan from Near at MasterCard today, and we have Dan from Self. Dan, can you tell us more about your company, Self?
Yeah, cool. So at Self, we are building a new concept for identity. So rather than identity being about the accounts or the credentials that are conferred on people by companies and governments, we want to be able to actually represent a person in a digital space.
Right.
And we're doing that to make it possible to be able to say, like in real time, right now, this person is this specific human, not through some keys or like some sort of proxy for identity, but like this human, this is either Bob, or this human is like this anonymous human that you think it is, and you need to be able to allow them access to your service.
So how will you do that? Because this is a very interesting topic, because security.
Yep.
and many other factors.
Yep. I mean, it's the key that unlocks lots of things, and it's one of the things that hasn't been there. Like it isn't possible to do until now. So we allow the user to build an identity for themselves on their phone. So the data only sits on the user's phone. There's no central system, there's no database, it's just on the phone. And we allow the user to capture verifiable information about themselves and to be able to capture some biometrics, a range of different things, like the core one is, I guess, pulling let's say, a photograph from the chip on a biometric passport, and then inside the app, the user is able to, every time they open it, every time they use the biometric functions in the app, they're essentially building up layers of composite image that allows the app to be able to say, this is still the same person it was when we gave them an account.
Right.
And then we bring in other factors into that proof, so that we bring a kind of mesh of proofs together that makes it harder and harder and harder for it to be anything other than the right user. So that might be behavioral biometrics, it might be a web of trust, because users can connect to the companies and the friends that they know that are on Self, and that builds a greater degree of trust across that person's account and across the web of people that they know.
Right. Does it raise any privacy concerns for?
I think it's the opposite. I think it solves privacy concerns. Like one of the kind of core things about Self is that it's about data minimization. So I know most of the time users don't need to share the information they share with organizations in order to be able to, I don't know, buy sneakers or hire a car or whatever it is they happen to be doing. And so Self is much more focused on zero knowledge, specifically zero knowledge proofs. So being able to expose information to organizations that gives them the confidence that they need to have in the user or in facts about that user, without actually having to overtly say anything about the user. You know, that allows us to make sure that people are at the right age, or make sure that that their insurance credentials are right, or that they should have access to a building or be able to buy a certain thing, but without actually exposing any information about that user. So, and actually, it's extensible. So, as an organization using Self, one of the huge benefits of it is today, right, they have these big databases full of information about their customers, about their users, but those databases are basically radioactive. They're sitting there, they've got to be protected, people are trying to attack those databases, steal information from them. Self allows those organizations to take the personally identifiable information that's in that and distribute it back to the user to store in the user's Self account. And that does two things. The organization retains a connection to the user and their data through Self's network, but now their data set contains no personal information. They can relate it to people, but it doesn't contain any information about those people. And that means that you have this data set that is outside of the scope of regulation. And it's something that they can then analyze in whatever way they want. It doesn't matter whether they're in California or in Europe or wherever it happens to be, where they have some tighter data regulations. That data is manipulatable, which is much more valuable to the organization than this radioactive pile of data they can't do much with, and they don't even know whether it's true.
Right. So again, like talk about security, because I tapped in years ago about identity also.
Yeah.
What layer of security that you guys are using to make sure that this information is secure? Because we're all, concerned about that.
Yeah, so the first thing is that there isn't any set of information somewhere that somebody can hack.
Right.
There's no database.
Okay.
We don't, that Self as an organization, we have no idea who our customers are.
Okay.
We don't know who our users are. So we have no user data. We can communicate with our users through Self.
Right.
But we have no identifiable information about them. That is all only on their phones. But when it's on their phones, it is encrypted, it's encrypted at rest, it's encrypted in transit. We protect the Self account using the secure element on the device. Like every possible security measure that we can take to protect the data on the phone is there, so that like if somebody gets access to a device, it's significantly more difficult to attack it. But like if you're a hacking group out of Russia and you want to get loads of people's data, the honeypot is the database with 5 million records in it that you have to throw some guys at. But if you've got 5 million databases, each of which hold only the information of one person, it's almost as expensive to get hold of those as it is to do just the one. So one of the biggest security benefits is simply the cost of accessing those devices, the cost of accessing each individual account is so high, it's kind of not worth it.
Right, but we also, like another question I have is one final question is that we change our phones all the time. So
Yeah.
how would you migrate that data, to our new phones?
So the data is always backed up. So
Okay.
we use the native backups
Okay.
that come with a phone.
Okay.
But we double encrypt the data that's there, and the data is then sharded. So it's not just basically a static file in your iCloud. It's spread.
Interesting.
And then we have two methods of recovery. One is using a long recovery passphrase, which everyone loses and forgets.
100%.
We're just in the process of finishing the social recovery, which runs in our Self has a runtime, and inside the runtime we run little smart applications that are like autonomous agents that act on behalf of the user. And one of the things these autonomous agents can handle is by being the holder of parts of the key material, so that you need to then go find a quorum of your friends who can allow you to get access to your keys and re-access your account. The runtime is actually kind of cool. One of the things that we're building in is at the moment, we just built this, is allowing a large language model to build some software on the fly to solve a problem for the user. So the use case of this is, I'm going on a journey somewhere. I put a meeting in my calendar in a city that I'm not currently in. Self will notice that I've put in an appointment in the city I'm in. It will go and build a little application that will go and interrogate the databases of the airlines via their APIs that fly between the two cities. And it will then come back to me and say, hey, I noticed that you're flying from New York. You need to get from New York to London. Here are the flight options that you have. Do you want me to go ahead and book one of these for you? And because my Self account is my twin, it contains my passport details and my credit card and my frequent flyer number. Right. That smart bit of software can just go book my flight, and then it will appear in my calendar and it will appear in my airline app, and I go take the flight. And then the app deletes itself because it doesn't need to be there anymore. It's done its job.
Interesting. Is there any company that you're currently working with right now?
There are, on that specific thing.
With Self.
With Self, so yeah, we're working with a bunch of companies, but we're quite early, so I'm not
maybe later. Maybe we'll tell it, I guess, later.
Yeah.
Where could they find you at?
So they find us on the web at joinself.com. They find us in the app stores. Again, Join Self. The production apps are in all of the app stores, and developers who want to have a play, all the developer documentation, tooling, and sandboxes and stuff is there for people to go play with and use.
Awesome, I'm excited. So again, thank you for Near and Mastercard for having us. Appreciate you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for everything, and thanks for sharing everything.
No problem. Thank you.
Until next time.